He turned 80 years old. Most people his age are sitting in a comfortable chair, surrounded by grandkids, living off the kind of success he built. But Danny DeVito is not living like that. Not even close. Right now, the man who made millions laugh for over 50 years is waking up every single morning in real pain. Not the kind of pain you walk off. The kind that never fully goes away, no matter what you do. And the saddest part? He has been hiding it from you for decades. Today, the truth is finally coming out, and once you hear how Danny DeVito is actually living at 80, you will never look at him the same way again. Let's go back to where this all started, because you cannot understand the man Danny DeVito became without first understanding the boy he used to be. He was born in 1944 in Neptune, New Jersey, and from the very first day, life was not on his side. His mother, Julia, was already 40 years old when he arrived. She had already raised several children, and she did not want another one. Years later, she said it out loud, without shame. She admitted she had never wanted him. Think about what it feels like to grow up knowing your own mother said that about you. That kind of wound does not heal. It follows you. And for Danny, it followed him everywhere. His father, Daniel Sr., was not much easier to grow up around. During the day, he ran a candy shop and was liked by the people in town. But once the sun went down and the bottles came out, he became a completely different person. Angry, unpredictable, and sometimes violent. Young Danny learned to read the room just to stay safe. He listened for the sound of footsteps changing. He watched for the signs. Sometimes he hid in closets. Other times he ran to the neighbors. Between 1950 and 1955, police were called to that house at least 17 times. Danny was not even 15 years old yet. And while other kids were playing outside without a care in the world, he was figuring out how to survive his own home. But here is the part that most people still do not know about. Danny was also dealing with something happening inside his own body, something that had no easy fix. He was born with a rare condition called Fairbanks disease. It is a bone disorder that stopped him from growing past 4 feet and 10 inches. But the height was never really the hardest part. What people did not see was the constant pain that came with it. His hips hurt. His knees hurt. His back hurt. Every single day. In his 20s and 30s, doctors measured his daily pain level at somewhere between 6 and 8 out of 10. And that was on a normal day. There was no such thing as a pain-free morning for Danny DeVito. There never had been. Now imagine being that person and trying to make it in Hollywood, a place where everything is about how you look, how tall you are, how you fit the mold. Danny did not fit any mold, and the industry made sure he knew it. Producers told him to change. Agents told him to get surgery. One studio put a contract in front of him worth nearly $1 million in today's money. All he had to do was reshape his face and alter his body to look more like what they wanted. He took that contract, walked down to the beach, and burned it in a bonfire. He looked at that casting director and said something that stuck with him for the rest of his life. He said he would rather be a first-rate version of himself than a second-rate version of somebody else. That moment right there tells you everything about who Danny DeVito really is. But choosing to be yourself does not pay the rent. Between 1967 and 1970, Danny auditioned 248 times. He landed just 3 small jobs, earning less than $800 total. To eat, he parked cars. He stood completely still inside a clothing store, pretending to be a mannequin. He cleaned animal cages at the Los Angeles Zoo for $1.85 an hour. For a period of time, he was living inside his old Volkswagen Beetle. He showered at the YMCA. He ate at soup kitchens. He kept that secret to himself for decades, too embarrassed to let anyone know how low things had gotten. But he kept going. That is the part that matters. He kept going even when every door was closed, even when his body hurt, even when no one believed in him. The turning point came because of a friendship. Years earlier, Danny had been sharing a tiny apartment in New York with a young man named Michael Douglas. They could barely afford the $75 rent. They ate canned beans and stale bread. Douglas kept quiet about the fact that his father was the famous Kirk Douglas. They were just 2 broke, young guys trying to make something of themselves. When Douglas went on to produce a film called One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, he personally asked for Danny to be cast. And here is the part that gives you chills. Danny had already played that same character in a stage version years before. When the casting team was unsure, Danny walked in already knowing the role by heart. The movie went on to win 5 Oscars. And even though Danny was only on screen for less than 6 minutes, the world finally noticed him. What followed was one of the greatest careers in television history. He was cast in a show called Taxi, playing a nasty, rude, completely awful dispatcher named Louis De Palma. His own agent told him not to do it. Everyone in Hollywood said moving from film to TV was career suicide. Danny read the script, trusted his gut, and signed the contract, even though it paid 40% less than what other actors were earning. Within 8 episodes, he had received over 11,000 fan letters. By 1980, 93% of Americans could recognize his character just from hearing his voice. He won a Golden Globe. Then he won an Emmy. And when he stepped up to accept that Emmy, he delivered the shortest acceptance speech in the history of that award. 12 words. That was it. Simple, honest, and completely Danny. His career kept climbing after that. He produced Pulp Fiction when every major studio had already passed on it. He directed Matilda, and when the young star of that film was quietly falling apart because her mother was dying of cancer, Danny and his wife Rhea brought a near-finished version of the movie to the hospital so her mother could watch it before she passed. He did not do it for press. He did it because it was the right thing to do. That is who he is when the cameras are not on him. But even through all of that success, the pain never stopped. It got worse. In 2008, doctors found serious disc damage in his back. By 2010, nearly half of his filming days were spent working through extreme pain. His mornings started at 4:30 in the morning with 4 hours of physical therapy, just so he could function on set. He bounced on a small trampoline. He took hot and cold baths. He hung upside down in his trailer trying to decompress his spine. For one water slide scene in 2011, he needed 19 takes and ended the day with broken blood vessels in his eye. But he finished the scene. He always finished the scene. Hollywood told him for years to keep the condition quiet, warning him that if he looked weak, the work would dry up. So he said nothing. He smiled for the cameras and collapsed off set when no one was watching. His personal life hit its own kind of pain too. He had met Rhea in the most unexpected way. She had come over to his apartment to break up with his roommate and ended up talking with Danny for 6 hours that same night. He later said he knew within 22 minutes that he wanted to marry her. They built a life together, raised 3 children, and for 30 years seemed like one of Hollywood's most solid couples. Then in 2012, they separated. The cracks had started forming the year before, with long filming days and rumors neither of them ever fully addressed. They tried therapy, 38 sessions. It was not enough. Then, in 2013, they were spotted holding hands again and tried one more time, staying together for 4 more years before finally going their separate ways for good in 2017. But here is the part that might surprise you. They never divorced. They sat down, worked out a quiet agreement, and moved on without a courtroom. Today, Danny lives in a house less than a mile from Rhea's. They still talk every Wednesday and every Sunday. Every month, they meet at the same restaurant, at the same table, like old times. Their son once mentioned that they still share a Netflix account and text each other while watching the same shows from different houses. After everything they went through, that is what remains. Not bitterness, not silence, just 2 people who still care about each other, living separate lives a few minutes apart. In 2025, Danny finally decided he was done staying quiet about Fairbanks disease. He started speaking publicly, not just for himself, but for every person living in that same quiet pain with no one speaking up for them. He has donated over $12 million to help fund bone condition research and treatment, always without putting his name on it. He gave $500,000 to the hospital where he was born. He has used whatever platform he has left to push Hollywood to stop pretending that only one kind of body belongs on screen. So how is Danny DeVito living at 80? He wakes up in pain. He goes through hours of therapy just to get his body moving. He lives alone, close to the woman he never fully let go of, texting her from a different house while they watch the same shows. He is still working, still producing, still showing up. But behind every laugh, behind every scene, there is a man who has carried more than most people will ever know. He carried a mother who did not want him, a father who frightened him, a body that has been fighting him his whole life, and a Hollywood that tried to erase him before he ever got started. He refused every single time. And that, more than any award or any box office number, is the real story of Danny DeVito.